This week, again, we're focusing on judicial branch, focusing on our court system. All of the online lectures have been posted. A lot of you have already done the Court Quest game, where you basically decide, based on the issue, which court would hear the case, working on the appeals process as well. And then this is what we are discussing today is our case brief project, okay? Earlier this week, I posted two things. I posted this document here, and that document looks like this. Kind of just introduces the Supreme Court some more. Again, highest court in the United States. They make a lot of important decisions pertaining to our legal system and whatnot. What I asked you to do, or what I'm asking you to do, is to select a case from this list, or if there's one that's not on this list that you know of that you would like to do, run it by me and I'd probably okay it. But what you're going to do is select one of these cases, do some research on it, and then create a PowerPoint, okay? So I'll show you my example PowerPoint here in just a second. And then here are the categories. I know here it says that the presentation is optional. I did not update the rubric. So in our case, the presentation is not optional. It's a required part of the project. So if you choose not to present, you lose those points, okay? So keep that in mind. The presentation, I'll say it for a third time, is not optional in our case, okay? And then these are just, the different sections that must be apparent in your PowerPoint and in your presentation, okay? Other thing I want to show you guys here really quick is I also shared a Google document with you all, and that's for the sign up. So if everybody should have gotten this link, again, it's posted to the beginning of the week announcement here. But if you go into this, you should be able to edit the document. And in other words, all I'm asking you to do is to sign up for a time to present. So looking at this list here, we can see that we've had a few people sign up. I give you all the times that are available. If for some reason none of these times work, which that'd be very hard for me to believe. But if for some reason absolutely none of these work, you need to figure out a different time with me. And then at that point, it's going to be on my schedule as far as if that works or not. Okay. But with access to to this document, you have the ability to go in there and edit it. And all you got to do is sign up for a time slot. So, and I want you to do that by the end of the day tomorrow as well. Okay. Anybody, I'm not seeing anything in the chat box. So anybody have questions on that portion? I want you to have those two things done, signing up for a case. And again, all you do for that to pick your case is I have an assignment posted right here where it says case selection. All you got to do is type in the comment box, open this up, type it in the text box. I want to do this case, done. Okay. And you're getting completion points for that, right? For picking a case and for signing up for a slot. That is a participation grade, right? So make sure you do that. Okay. Questions before we start talking about the actual brief. And again, just put it in the chat box if you have a question. That way I'll see it because I'll just keep on going here. All right. So going back to our rubric and then scrolling down here, these are the different sections that your slideshow must include. So this fifth thing here is just the presentation. So we're going to focus on the first four. So you have to have a title slide. Okay. Now here is a brief that I did once upon a time when I was taking a law class at NDSU, but your brief is going to look very similar to mine. So this first slide that I'm on right now, this is my title slide. Payton versus New York, U.S. Supreme Court case. And then I have the case citation here. Okay, that is a pretty universal thing, like the Supreme Court numbers their cases. So that information should be readily available to you, depending on which sources you use and such. And I'll show you guys during this. I'll show you a couple good places to find information. Okay, but this is your title slide, right? So you're getting 5 points for having this done, having the title of your case and your U.S. Supreme Court case citation. This is the citation, okay? The next part of this is the facts of the case. Okay. In other words, what happened? Okay. What happened? And there's some chronological order to it so we can understand what's going on. For a format on the fact slide, I know we usually say for like a bullet point and a PowerPoint, you don't want to use a full sentence. In this case, I'm going to say it's okay. And then, so here are my fact slides. So Payton versus New York, U.S. Supreme Court case. Here are the facts of my case. There was a Theodore Payton who was alleged, there was probable cause that Theodore Payton had murdered a gas station worker. Officers a few days later, or the next day, go to Payton's apartment. Their intention is to arrest him for this murder. Again, key point that they arrived at 7:30 in the morning. When the officers arrived at his apartment, they knocked. Nobody answered. Some time passed. They called for assistance, and the cops ended up breaking down the door to Payton's apartment. They did not announce their presence. Again, the important thing with this is this case is a Fourth Amendment issue, so unreasonable searches and seizures. So it's very important that in my facts slide, I also include, or my next facts slide, right? My first one, second one, next slide. Without a warrant, the officers entered Payton's apartment and concluded that he was not home. They found a .30 caliber shell casing in plain view, basically meaning that it wasn't like in a dresser drawer, it wasn't hiding. It was sitting out on his kitchen table, or it was on the floor, or whatever. They used that empty shell casing as evidence in his murder trial. Eventually, Payton's going to turn himself over to police. He gets charged with murder, and Payton had asked that the evidence taken from his home be suppressed, basically meaning that it would not be able to be used against him in the court of law. Okay. And that shell casing to the officers was a pretty important piece of evidence, because that caliber shell casing was also the same shell case, or same size, that had been used to kill the gas station attendant. But Payton asked that that evidence be suppressed because the officers did not have a warrant to search his house. Okay? Something that you guys are going to discover was with Supreme Court cases is a lot of times, this case is Payton versus New York. It's named after Theodore Payton. But there was also another similar event involving a guy named Obie Riddick. And so sometimes what will happen is the Supreme Court will kind of combine cases into one, especially if they deal with a similar issue. So in this case, Payton versus New York also gets combined with the Obie Riddick case. And again, similar deal here. That Obie Riddick was wanted or arrested for 2 armed robberies. He gets identified by the victims. Officers go to his house. Riddick doesn't answer the door. Somebody else does. Again, the key fact here is without a warrant, the police enter the house and arrest him. They also start searching his apartment. He gets in trouble for drug charges. Okay. And so those are the facts. All right. So your fact slides, you should probably have more than one fact slide. All right. Be very detailed in this. All right. I'm not seeing anything in the chat box, so I'm going to assume that there's no questions. Okay. But very thorough facts. All right. The next part of this is the issue. So the Supreme Court, seniors, with any case that they take, they're trying to answer, what the issue is. Okay, so in this case, we know that the issue has to do with searches and warrants. Okay, so my issue slide and your guys' issue slide, it can literally be one slide. Okay, but on your issue slide, you should address what issue is being examined by the U.S. Supreme Court, or in other words, what question was the court trying to answer. Okay, so I have a little bit more details here. You guys don't need this. I want you, though, so this is a little bit beyond our scope, but what I want you to have is something like this, okay? This is the question in the Payton versus New York case that the Supreme Court was trying to answer, and that question is whether there is an illegal search and seizure when police search the home during arrest without a warrant and seize evidence where there is probable cause but no exigent circumstances. So yeah, the police had probable cause that that Theodore Payton had committed this crime. They had probable cause that Obi Riddick had committed this crime, but they did not have a search warrant, and they also didn't have any reason to believe that, you know, that these guys were flight risks or whatever, or that they were a huge, you know, immediate threat to the public. All right. So this is the question that in my case that the Supreme Court's trying to answer. So when you guys do your issue, it can literally be one slide with this question on it. Okay. That's what I'm looking for. It's worth 5 points on here, right? But you need to include this, and that is the question that the Supreme Court's trying to answer. Okay. The next couple of slides are going to be your holding / reasoning slides. So the holding is how the Supreme Court rules. It's the majority opinion. Okay. So for the holding in the Payton versus New York case, the Supreme Court, the majority of the justices said it was held that the Fourth Amendment prohibits police from making a warrantless entry into a person's home in order to make a routine arrest. Okay. That's how the court rules. Now, that answers the holding. So in this case, the Supreme Court actually ruled in favor of Payton and Riddick. Okay, basically saying that officers had overstepped their bounds and that there was a unreasonable search and seizure that took place. So the Supreme Court ruled in favor of Payton and of Obi Riddick. Okay, so this addresses how the court ruled. If you look at the rubric, though, I want you to address how the Supreme Court ruled and why. Okay? And I know this is kind of wordy, but seniors, I only want you to focus on the majority opinion. Okay? Don't worry about concurring opinions or dissenting opinions. I only want you to focus on the majority opinion. All right? So then my next thing that I have here is I have my reasoning, right? And you can call both these slides holding if you want. I just kind of broke it down a little bit farther. But this is my reasoning slide. And this explains why the Supreme Court ruled the way they did. They cited a previous Supreme Court case, Boyd versus the United States. Okay. They also cited Watson versus the United States. Okay. So that's what we're looking for. And then your presentation is a part of this. Okay, so you have a title slide, you have fact slides, you have your issue slide, and then you have a holding / reasoning slide, making sure you're doing all those things. If you do not provide, you know, any details on why the Supreme Court ruled and the way they did, you know, you're going to lose some points there. So make sure you do that. Students in years past sometimes have forgotten to address that part. Okay. Now, I'm going to show you guys a couple of online resources here that I think can help you out with this. If you're thinking, you know, where do I need to go to find information on my case? One of the best ones out there is Oyez, OYEZ. I believe it's .com. And maybe it's not. Oyez.org, my bad. So Oyez is real nice. It's just a dictionary, and it looks just like this. So now when I come up here to my search bar and I type in Payton v. New York, it's going to give me a nice detailed rundown. Oh. And here's my case, and it gives me a little bit more information about it. Okay, I have my citation right here, right? You need that on your title slide. Here is the U.S. Supreme Court citation, facts of the case, question, and then some information about the holding and the reasoning. Okay. The other good site that